So as mentioned, my name is DJ Mormile. I've been doing this for quite a while now, pretty close to 25 years. I'm the account director that works directly with the Krupp team and Anthony, and we'll be working with you guys going forward. Now, I'm really excited to share one of my favorite topics today, which is long-term care annuities. And I will be drinking out of my out of a homemade cup that I made with my daughter. So if you guys see it, that's exactly where this thing's coming from. I've got my coffee in that thing. Now I am in Houston, so I'm a few hours ahead of you guys. So this is probably my third cup. But let's go ahead and get rolling into this presentation. And again, like I said, this is one of my favorite topics because it gives us a whole lot of flexibility. It allows us to work with a different segment of clients that we wouldn't normally be able to think about for long-term care. It allows us to go ahead and talk to older clients all the way up to age 87, people who have health issues, people who have existing annuities right now. So it's kind of a unique solution that we put together. But just a quick mention about who we are, quick commercial on who we are. In case you're not familiar with us, we've been doing this for about 150 years as for life insurance as a whole. From a long-term care perspective, we've been in the industry for about 35 years, kind of when first asset care first started, or asset-based long-term care first came out in the marketplace. We were there. One of the largest life insurance companies in the US. We're a mutual company. We're in the top 5% of all insurance carriers. So you guys are getting a good, strong carrier behind the concepts that we're going to be showing you today. Now, we also have a whole life product. We're not going to be going into the whole life product today, but in the event that you decide, you know what, these solutions sound great, but I'd rather do something a little bit different. You need to fund with qualified dollars. You want to do an annual pay. You're looking for unlimited long-term care. We can help you out with all that stuff. But let's jump into what we're going to be talking about today, this idea of these long-term care annuities. Now, I love this topic mainly because when I go out, most people don't understand this concept right here, which is the Pension Protection Act. I was actually on a panel a couple of years ago, and don't feel bad if you've never heard about it before, because I was on a panel. This is probably 2 years ago in San Antonio. The industry sent their product designers from all over, carriers all over the industry, to show up at a panel where I explained exactly this. So there's a lot of carriers that don't even understand how this works, what it is, but it revolves around a piece of legislation called the Pension Protection Act. And within the Pension Protection Act, the government now allows us to take those old annuities. There's billions of dollars of them out there. And I would venture to say that a lot of your wealthier clients maybe did buy an annuity. A lot of times when I've worked with RIAs in the past, they'll say, yes, I'm managing this chunk of the portfolio, but I understand my client, they do have this annuity out here that somebody else sold them. I know it's out there, but it's not part of what I do. So we're just going to leave that with the other person. Yes, maybe they don't have long-term care protection in place because this client could buy a long-term care facility tomorrow if they wanted to. That type of a client is exactly the perfect client that would work great for this, because with that old annuity that the client currently owns, in the event that, let's say, we all understand how they work. They put dollars into it today. It grows over the course of time. And when the client needs to, and it's tax deferred, but when the client pulls money out of it down the road, they get taxed on the gain. Always, with one exception though. If the client were to recharacterize that existing annuity into another annuity that has long-term care verbiage built into it, it has the tax code built in, then underneath this idea, the Pension Protection Act, all dollars are distributed out of this thing completely tax-free if they're used for long-term care purposes. So what we're able to do now is go ahead and take that old asset that your client's not going to wind up annuitizing, that they're probably just going to wind up passing down to the kids. And we're able to take that asset and turn it into something like a huge HSA that, instead of using it for, let's say, medical costs, your client could use it for long-term care cost. So let me go a little further in and explain really kind of how this works a little bit further. This is a side by side of the taxation on an existing annuity versus a long-term care annuity. And that's not just with us, it's with anybody. Now, keep in mind, there's only two other carriers in the industry that do have these long-term care annuities, but here's how they work. You're still going to get tax deferred growth. You're still going to get account value growth over the course of time. You can always reach in and grab dollars out of your account. These things are even treated the same exact way at death, with the exception of the one thing. If the client pulls money out for long-term care, completely tax-free, very similar to that HSA. If they wind up keeping the old annuity, they can expect to lose probably about a third of it to Uncle Sam. So really, it comes down to which do you want to pay taxes or do you not want to pay taxes? I would venture to say that most of our clients are going to be in the camp of, you know what, I have an asset that we can turn into a tax-free source of income. Even the most wealthy client will understand that that in itself is a great idea. Now, let's go one step further. I thought I had another. Here we go. Messed up where this thing was supposed to be. The other thing that we can or that we can put along with these policies, you know what? Let me step back and talk about product itself. Within the long-term care suite at One America, we have a product suite called Annuity Care. We have several different products in there. I like to look at them from two different categories. We're the only carrier that can do this idea and talk about this concept of a leveraged long-term care annuity versus an unleveraged long-term care annuity. Now, what's the difference right there? Normally, when we think long-term care, we like to think we put a dollar in today and we get some sort of extra additional money down the road. We also know that when dollars come out of these policies, they're considered tax-free distributions. And the other thing that a lot of us love about these policies, especially the One America policies, is that they come along with some fantastic guidance that goes along with it. Now, from a One America perspective, we can handle this two different ways. We can handle the leverage. If you have a client who, number one, is a little bit younger, and by younger I mean under 70 is my favorite. We can go all the way up to 80. If they're healthy and they're maybe a smaller client of yours, we can take that existing annuity and give it a multiplier. We can turn $100,000 into $400,000. Now, there is a small amount of underwriting that goes along with that and an insurance charge that goes along with that because we're doing that continuation of benefits rider. The other idea that we can do, and this is completely okay within the Pension Protection Act, is using a non-leveraged annuity. So the concept to think about here is we're not going from a 1-to-4 aspect, we're going from 1-to-1. But what we're doing, so we're not getting that leverage, but what we are doing is we're getting those other two things. Number one, getting the tax benefits of it. Number two, we're getting that guidance. And when I say guidance, this is the slide where I was going a second ago. This is really what I mean. By guidance, think about guidance as in the event of needing to call the insurance carrier because it's the worst day of your client's life and they need to go ahead and file a long-term care insurance claim. They pull out their old policy, they dust the thing off, they call the claims number. Who is going to answer on the other side? Will it be an 800 number that goes to a call center in the middle of nowhere and some random person answers and reads off a script and tells them you have this benefit and good luck and they mail you a check? Or are you going to get one person? This is the way we do it at One America. We're going to assign you a claims concierge, which is the guidance to help your family through one of the most difficult times of their entire life. We're going to help you build a plan of care. We're going to assign one person to that claim. So in the event that you ever have an issue down the road, you're not calling a random call center. You're calling Darlene or whomever it is at One America, and they will walk you through everything from building the plan of care to finding care in the community to even setting up touch-free billing. And then every time that you need something going forward, because this isn't a term insurance claim where you're going to call the insurance company one time. Anytime, if your client may be calling us every other month. And this claim, we have claims that have been going for 20 plus years. So you want to make sure your client has the most clean claims experience as possible. That one person that calls in will continue to get Darlene every time that they call in until Darlene retires. And then at that point, they're going to hand it off to the next person and keep going. So that's the other part of the guidance that you're going to get with One America. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, we can do this on a leveraged chassis or an unleveraged chassis. Let's talk about leverage for a second. Now, when you're thinking leveraged, my favorite clients for this product are under 70 years old. You can put a spouse on here. And the idea is very, very simple. It's a 3.65% rate. You take that existing annuity and you slide it over into Annuity Care 2. The client will go through underwriting on this because it is leveraged. If they are, and what we're going to look at is that 3.65% minus a small charge, maybe it's a 2% that comes off this. So the client will wind up getting, call it 1.65% growth on their, not a lot. It's a conservative idea. The thing's not meant for growth. But in the event that they wind up doing that, they're going to get 4 times leverage. Now, what's that going to look like? Right here. If the client had that existing annuity that they bought years and years ago, it was $50,000 and now it's grown to $200,000. If the client wants to use that without invading assets under management that you guys are working on right now, the client would have to pay tax on that. Chances are, higher tax bracket, they're going to have to pay a boatload of taxes on this. Or if they recharacterize it, they shift it over. And I would do this again for younger clients under 70. You can go up to 80 if they're healthy. Again, healthier clients, because they will have to go through a phone call interview. That's it. No, nothing past the phone call. But when they do that, that 200 grand will grow at about 2% in this example, and they will have $800,000 to use down the road to pay for care. So I love this idea. If your client has a smaller annuity, if they're healthy and they're a little bit younger. But what happens if we wind up working with some clients who maybe aren't exactly in that same scenario? Maybe the clients are a little bit older, all the way up to age 87. Annuity Care 2 goes up to $500,000. The non-leveraged idea, we can take annuities up to $1.5 million with this. I love this idea. There's no leverage on this, but think about that large annuity. Maybe it's $1 million annuity. Maybe the client put $250,000 into it. It's grown over the course of time. Now that thing is 700. It's just a loaded tax bomb. Instead of having to use their other assets, in the event they ever need care, they can go ahead and utilize that non-leveraged LTC policy. It's still going to continue growing like the existing policy is. We are going to go ahead and not charge any cost of insurance. So your costs go to zero on this. If you have a client with, let's say, an old VUL that's loaded full of charges, perfect example, because we're going to get the charges out of that portfolio. We're going to de-risk that thing, put it in this, no charges and tax-free distributions. The other thing that works great here is maybe your client has an old cash value life insurance policy that's kind of starting to implode on them. You can very simply take that cash value, slide it over here. Now you have that tax-free slush fund to use for long-term care down the road. Now, we can do this 2 different ways. If your client likes the idea of going with a fixed chassis, we can do that. If your client is a little more sophisticated, if you're comfortable showing an index chassis, I like using our index product. We call it Index Annuity Care. And the way that that works, it's going to look very similar to what we just looked at a few minutes ago with the Annuity Care 2. That $50,000 goes in, $150,000 worth of gain. If the client needed it down the road, a lot of taxes would be paid. If we shifted it over into an index annuity care, what the client would get is they wouldn't see that big leverage. Okay. But maybe you're in a situation where I do not do any sort of life insurance or any sort of long-term care on my clients because I'm a little bit worried that they're going to get declined. Guess what? You're not going to have that issue with this because you get to be the underwriter. Here's what the underwriting actually looks like. It's a it's four knockout questions that's on the application. Your client, you complete the application, you'll check off that the client is currently not using any mechanized devices. They don't have problems with ADLs today, so they're not claim eligible for long-term care today. They don't have things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, muscular dystrophy, or HIV, and the policy is issued tomorrow. No underwriting, no phone call, no charges on this thing. So it's a very easy way to go ahead and grab those dollars that are out there that you're currently not, that may not be underneath your umbrella today, bring them under your umbrella, cause them to be tax-free, and not have to worry about underwriting issues. Now, along with that, you're still going to get some pretty nice growth. Now, in the event that the client put this money in the first year, their monthly long-term care benefit, they would have access to half of their benefit available for 2 years. So it's a 24-month policy. They can take 50% a year. At the end of the first year, that 200 would have grown to $210,000. Let's say the client passed away at that point, the family would get 210. If they needed it for long-term care, we also have additional bonuses built in. It's a 1% per year bonus of extra growth that goes on top of this that will go towards a long-term care ledger. What that's going to look like, chances are they're not going to go on a claim in the first year. But let's say that the 77-year-old female bought this policy, she held it for 10 years. At the end of the 10 years, her $200,000, mind you, would have been still very taxable. But if she needed it for long-term care now, it's grown to almost 400 grand, totally tax-free. If she passed away, never needed it for care, her family would get $360,000 passed to them as an annuity, just like if it was in the old annuity. If she needed it for long-term care, she'd have two things: $16,500 a month for 24 months. If she didn't use it all, that money would continue to grow. It would stay there for even longer than 24 months. Plus, she would have the claims concierge from One America to take care of her. And guys, one thing I do want to leave with you as we start to wrap up, don't forget the weight of this claims concierge idea. One of the absolute largest sales I've made in the last 25 years of my business, I was working with an individual who is a former CEO of a large aerospace company. I was having a conversation with this gentleman on behalf of, it was actually a Crump advisor years ago. And the situation was he was firing questions at me for about a half an hour. At the end, I went into the claims concierge part of the presentation, kind of like I'm doing right now. And immediately that's when his wife spoke up. And she said, "Wait a minute, you're telling me that you're going to bring in specialists so my husband doesn't have to figure all this out himself." She said, I want the policy now. That was the only thing she said. And at that point, he said, "All right, we're done. Perfect. Let's go forward with it." Because she said it was going to make everybody's life easier, that he did not have to worry about it. So I love this idea from a claims concierge, from a guidance standpoint, just to make things easier on everybody as kind of icing on top of the cake. Now, this kind of shows an example of what the ledger would look like. But when we get to a scenario of a live case, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you, with Anthony, with whomever it is, to help walk you and your client through this example and show them how we can actually help them. Now, with that being said, I want to go ahead and share this client profile. Anthony is going to be sending this out in a short period of time, a little bit later on, as a follow-up. I love this idea because it'll give you an opportunity to where, if you had thought about anybody who over the course of this presentation, where you're thinking, you know what, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, whoever it is, those people have an existing annuity. I would love to bring that underneath my umbrella and use that as their first defense for long-term care purposes in the event that they ever needed it in the future. You're doing a great service for your client. You're saving them a ton of taxes. You're giving them the guidance. we're able to help. So put their names down on
TJ,
this. We are more than happy to get you as much information as we need, and we'll walk you through every bit of the presentation. Last thing I want to leave you with.
can I ask
What's up?
a
Yeah, sure,
follow-up
Dane. What's
question
going on?
there? Some clients will have, maybe 500,000 in a non-qualified. Can we do a partial 1035 exchange into it for, like, well, let's say they have 500,000, cost basis is maybe 200,000. Could they do a 200,000? And if so, is it a pro rata calculation that would transfer over
We will do
of
a
the cost
partial.
basis?
Yeah, we will do a partial if the outgoing carrier allows it. Sometimes they tend to, shut it down. If it does move and they're okay with it, it'll move pro rata. So unfortunately, we can't just take the gains and move them. It would be nice if we could, but it would come over, like I said, pro rata, half and half.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure. Now, if you're going to be doing something like that, then all of a sudden we start looking at, do you want to do the annuity care 2 and leverage it up, have the client go through a phone interview, or are you thinking, you know what, don't want to have them go through the interview, let's just immediately issue tomorrow? That's up to you and your client, however you want to handle it. But for one like that, you're kind of on the ballpark, or kind of on the fence, whether you go with annuity care 2 or the unleveraged product. But keep in mind, the unleveraged product, we can go all the way to 87 on that.
Could you go back to that kind of table where it says, transfer? Exactly. Just want maybe look at that a little bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, it was a 76-year-old individual, 200,000 went in. You'll see the growth right, or you'll see the, where are we? You'll see the growth right here, account value growth. If she were to pass away in, let's say at 85, 329 would go to the family. If she needed it for long-term care in the future, 362, because it would be a combination of the account value plus the multipliers that we would put on here, would give her a little bit over $12,000 a month for 24 months.
And that's the number 2 or number 1, this particular?
This is the unleveraged idea. This is the unleveraged idea. This is the second one with no underwriting. Now, if we wanted to look at what it would look.
So the 200,000 that came, it was a qualified money, right?
That would be non-qualified.
Non-qualified, okay.
Non-qualified. So if we use qualified annuities for something like this, when the money comes out, it will be taxable. So it's not my favorite way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any qualified dollars that you would like to use, I would suggest asking Anthony about our life product, Asset Care, because we have a fantastic product. We're the only product in the industry that can handle qualified IRA type dollars.
And then on that last one though, 12,000 a month, it's that's 288,000 is 2 years. So does it last for 3 years then? The long-term care benefit balance, 12,091 per month.
You know what? Maybe this thing had a couple on it, because if it was a couple, then it would extend a few more months to. Let me see.
It does say couple.
75-year-old couple. That's what's going on with this one.
So can you explain? So 12,091 per month for only 24 months, and then the remaining balance would go towards the second spouse?
Sorry about that. If we go from a single individual, and that's where I kind of botched it here because I used a single person here, but here we used a couple. If we used a single person, it would come out over 24 months. If we used a couple, it would come out over 30 months.
Gotcha.
So if we look at that $12,100 ish.
But that's just the quickest, right? Of course, if they only need 8,000 a month, then it just lasts until it runs out. Essentially,
it's going to continue. Yeah, it's going to sit there and continue to grow.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool.
Absolutely. Now, if I go back to the leveraged idea, this one right here, this shows $100,000 going in day one. Something awful happened when the client left your office after getting the policy. they would have a $401,000 long-term care balance. So they're automatically getting that leverage. Now, this could be, if it's a single person, it would come out over 5 years. If it was a couple, it would come out over 8 years. And again, this is for healthier people, and it works great for people under 70 years old. If you go 70 to 80, the number wouldn't be 1 to 4, it would be 1 to 2.5. But it still looks pretty fantastic.
If the first person dies in year 2 after using coverage, then the second spouse would get the remaining 6 years?
Correct. They would get everything left.
And what if they only use 2 years, first spouse 2 years, so call it 80, 80 some odd thousand, or like 95, then that first spouse dies, second spouse dies, then the remaining cash value, or actually the cash value is pretty much done by then, right? So nothing really left for the heirs.
Yeah, so let's take year 10 in this example right here. You'll see that, so your money will be spent first, the client's money will be spent first. Let's say that there was a claim in the 10th year, and they utilized $100,000 out of this that was given to them, and then there was a double death, and there would be $3,630 that was not spent out of the accumulated value that would go back to the family.
Okay.
So it's the accumulated value minus claims would be the death benefit.
Thank you for clearing
Sure.
that up.